Hey nerds, today I'm working on something a bit different, my new author headshot for 2024. I wanted this illustration to represent who I am this year, so join me for the process. Self-portraits are tough because I'm naturally critical of how I look. There's this added pressure when drawing yourself, where every little detail feels really important. You want it to look like yourself, and you want it to be stylized, but you also don't want people to look too close at you, you know? My goal here wasn't to make a flawless version, it was to capture my essence for 2024, something that feels authentically me. For the colors, I went with something that was authentic to how I look, but then for the background, I wanted to go bright, bright, bright. My inspiration here, 90s cartoons and quirky space themes, definitely embracing some cosmic vibes. The colors were inspired by that bright, adventurous look of 90s animation, which always has a touch of nostalgia for me. I felt like my head has practically been on Mars this entire year, and I wanted to play into that with the colors that reflect a mix of that daydreamy energy with my space case state of mind. The shading process is honestly one of my favorite parts, and the technique of it is honestly ingrained into me at this point. It doesn't really change from piece to piece now. This is where the artwork starts to feel like it's coming alive, and I'm very comfortable in what I'm doing at this stage. I like to use soft, subtle shading brushes to really blend out the skin in a way that still has texture. The key is to gradually layer these soft shadows over the face, especially in areas where I want to stylize it, like on the cheeks, on the forehead, under the jawline. That will give it a sense of depth without making it look too harsh or dramatic. It's definitely fun working on stylized faces like this because I'm so used to working in a classical environment where you're trying to render a human as realistically as possible, but this portrait ended up looking more in the style of, I would say, gorillas, for example. The anatomy is close to human, but not quite. It's still cartoony in that way, and so to apply realistic shading onto it was an absolute trip. All of this shading is really about balance because I really like those dark black tones for my shirt, and I want to contrast that flatness with something that has a lot of depth. It's a combination of subtle and bold choices, just like any good portrait should be. Hopefully the shading brings out a bit of who I am beyond just the way that I look. At this point, I was feeling pretty confident in it, and I really liked the way that the texture and the color was laying on my illustration, so I decided to move on to the hair. I don't think I'm quite satisfied yet with how I render hair. It's still a work in progress, but with this portrait, I really did like how it turned out. I ended up having to tweak the colors in order to make it more realistic to the color that my hair was at the time, and overall, I'm very satisfied with how the shading ended up in the end. Oh hey, if you're enjoying this video, consider hitting the subscribe button for more art and writing content, and don't forget to check out my latest book, King of Dust, now available on Amazon in paperback, ebook, and hardcover. Now let's get back to it. For the background, I wanted something that felt really me. While keeping the focus on the portrait of itself, I needed to frame my face, and I chose a design that plays with bold shapes and bright colors, giving it that vaporwave, retrowave, futuristic feel. I love the aesthetic of vaporwave and retrowave because there's such a blend of nostalgia and surrealism. It's like looking into the past and looking into the future at the same time. With these neon planets and space elements, I'm nodding to my fascination with the unknown, with exploration and creative freedom. There's something about the vibrant colors that just resonates. It feels almost limitless, like the world of my imagination is just a little bit more accessible. And because space is such a big part of this aesthetic, it's grounding, but in kind of a surreal way. Anything is possible if you shoot for the stars. I know, it's corny. I wanted the background to not only be visually interesting, but to give people just kind of a little feeling when they looked at this thing. Know where I am creatively, if that makes sense. These electric colors feel like they speak to my personality, and choosing a graphic, almost minimalist approach to representing the elements behind my head with abstract shapes and neon hues gives it an energy. Choosing the right background can really make a portrait feel complete. In this case, the contrast between the blues and the purples and striking neon pinks and yellows help make me, who ends up, I guess, really kind of monotone against it all, really pop. It's a great way to use contrast to draw a person's eye to what matters, which in this case is my face. Not only is it realistic because I tend to wear a lot of black in my day-to-day, but also I think that it is kind of an interesting commentary on an artist living in the world of the real and all of the craziness that goes on inside my head behind my eyes when I close them to go to sleep. I decided to go with an illustration over a photo for this year's headshot because an illustration feels more personal, more expressive of who I am. With art, I get to add nuances that a photo wouldn't capture, like specific colors and textures that resonate with how I'm feeling and growing right now. This piece represents not just how I look, but the journey I've been on as both an artist and an author. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this speed paint, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more, and let me know what you think of the final portrait in the comments.